Hello, my name is Laura with Laura's Weighted Blankets, and I'd like to talk to you today about what filling options you have for your weighted blanket. There are two primary options, poly pellets and glass beads, and so let's take a look and see what the difference is and what the pros and cons are for each choice.
All right, so here are the two different kinds of filling that I use. The poly pellets are small, round pieces of plastic. They are non-toxic. They've not been recycled or used before, so you don't have to worry about what other kinds of things they've been exposed to. They do have a texture like tiny pebbles. For many people, this is not an issue at all. For some people, this would be a deal breaker. So if the texture of tiny pebbles inside your blanket is something that would really bother you, I recommend the glass beads. The glass beads are like the texture of sand, maybe even finer than sand you would find on most man-made beaches. It takes a lot less of the glass beads to equal the same weight as the poly pellets. So it makes for a blanket with a low profile. But because of the texture of the sand inside the blanket, it feels very smooth and doesn't have the distinctive texture of poly pellets. Here you can better see the difference between the poly pellets and the glass beads. Both these bowls are the same size, and they are both filled with 1 pound of material. I'd say there's about twice as much of the poly pellets as there are of the glass beads in terms of volume. So let's take a look at how the different fabrics and the pellets work together. Now, this cotton blanket is made with poly pellets, and as you can see, it's bumpy. I can feel that as I'm touching the fabric. Now, I've used this blanket on a regular basis for the past couple of weeks, and I don't notice the poly pellets when I'm sleeping. I'm not particularly sensitive to the texture of the pellets. Here you can see how bumpy that is. For most people, I think it's not a big deal. If when you hear, oh, it's going to be bumpy inside my blanket, your initial reaction is, no way. Then let's take a look at the next option. Now this blanket is filled with glass beads. If I shake this down a little bit, you can see that there's something in there. When I was showing you the poly pellets and glass beads earlier, you could see that it takes a lot less of the glass beads to equal the same weight as the poly pellets. This is a very smooth texture, not just with the satin cotton fabric. Here, let's look at the other side. You can see it's just really, really smooth. Now here you can see the poly pellets inside the Minky blanket. Now with the Minky, I can still feel the poly pellets a little bit, but it is not nearly as distinct of a texture as it is with the cotton. The thickness of this particular kind of Minky especially really smooths over the feel of the poly pellets. So if you weren't sure if you should get the poly pellets and you wanted the glass beads, but you wanted a more economical choice, the Minky combined with the poly pellets might be something you could consider.